Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat tonight. We really appreciate you being so willing to share.
Well, you're
Um,
welcome.
can you start by telling us how long you've been a member of the church?
Yes, we joined the church in spring of 2009. So we've been a member since then. But I've been a member of the UCC church for a lot longer than that. But the church here in Hillsboro, I joined in 2009. The UCC church, I joined in 1990.
Okay. And can you share a little bit more just about your religious background?
Yeah, I was raised a Methodist and went to all the things that Methodist kids go to, the youth groups and sang in the choir and did all that. And then when I went to college, I went to the Methodist Student Union and all that. But then I kind of needed some changes, and I went to the Episcopal Church for a while, and I went to the Presbyterian Church for a while, and I went to the Christian Church for a while. But when we moved back to Moline from South Dakota, in South Dakota, I had visited a UCC church, but then when we moved back to Moline, my husband had grown up in the UCC church. And so we talked about it, and he said, I'd really like to go to the church that I grew up in. And I said, that was fine with me. I didn't care as long as we went to church together, which we did. So I didn't get introduced to the UCC church in full until 1990, when we moved back to the Quad Cities. So that's when I started going there.
Okay. And then how did you come to be a member of this church?
Well, that's kind of a long story, and I want to, and some people know this story, but I thought it would be kind of fun to share. My sister Jennifer and I moved here in September of 2005. We moved to the Portland area and moved into Hillsboro. And I was recently retired from the job that I had in the Quad Cities, and we moved out here because my son lived here. And the job that I had was pretty stressful. So I was pretty tired when I first retired. And I had been really overcommitted at the church that I was in Moline. I served on every single board in that church except finance, and which is ironic considering that I serve on finance here. And I was even moderator of that church when we left there. So I was pretty burned out on church. And Jennifer was a Catholic. She had become a Catholic in her 30s. And so we were kind of not at a place where we could find a church home. And so we kind of went to a couple of places and didn't get really excited about it. And then in 2008, I began to really start missing having a church home. And we talked about going, and I was telling her about the UCC church and why I liked it so much and why I was so involved in it. And she said, well, if we can find one, we'll go there. Well, we kind of put it off. You know how you do, just kept putting it off. And Christmas Eve of 2008, we were driving out to a friend's house for dinner. And I don't know, you weren't here then, Molly, so you don't know that we had a terrible snowstorm. And as you've learned since you've been here, they don't do real well with the streets, not like in the Midwest where you can get plowed streets. So we're driving on I-5, and I got in one of the ruts. And all of a sudden in that rut, there was a car coming toward us. I mean, bear this in mind, we're on I-5 and I have headlights coming toward me. Well, we swerved and got out of there, and we're fine, and got to our friend's house, and we're sitting in the driveway, and I went, I think the good Lord's trying to tell us something. We need to make a commitment here. And so that was Christmas Eve. And the first Sunday in January, we went to the church at 5th and Main. I had seen the church several times when I'd gone downtown Hillsboro, and I thought, it looks like a really nice church and we should try that. So we went there the first Sunday in January. And when we walked in, It was like we were home. I was home. I mean, it was just, it was so open and so friendly. And Jennifer decided that she would come with me because she wanted to go to church with me. I mean, we wanted to make a commitment. So even with her Catholic background, she um, joined the UCC church with me. So, and that was when Diane was pastor, and it, we just fell in love with the church, and we've been there ever since. So, and I had learned a lot about the church over the years when I in the church in Moline, because I had taught Sunday school and confirmation classes, and I did a lot of research to prepare for those classes. So I knew a lot about the background about the church, and I'm really committed to their social programs and their social actions. So it's something that I really believe in. It's a denomination where I belong. So that's how we got there.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I actually hadn't heard that story yet, so that's a lot of fun. Kind of a unique way to find a church.
Yeah, it was very.
Yeah. Um, do you, with all your background, have you come to find a favorite Bible verse or
Well,
story?
it's kind of interesting. I have this little, you see this little stone? You can't read it here, but this little stone has my favorite Bible verse. And it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And it's Philippians 4:13. And we've done a lot of work with our book group, and we've done a lot of soul searching. Our book group is a theology group, and that still holds true for me, even though I've learned a lot of things about the Bible and about Christ. But the tenets that he taught us, the things that he stood for, the things that he wants us to do with our lives is what I believe in, and helping other people and doing those kind of things. So that's my favorite Bible verse. Okay.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And a very meaningful one. I want to ask a little bit now about giving to the church and talk about the importance of that. So if you're comfortable sharing, would you share a little bit about how and why you support our church financially?
Well, um, I pledge monthly. I have always pledged, and when I retired, I found out I didn't have as much money as I had when I was working full time. So my pledge is not nearly as much as I would like for it to be. However, what I do in lieu of the financial support, and I truly believe in the financial support, is that I donate time uh, and do things that I serve on boards, and I not last year we did the auction, and I volunteer for things. That's how I support the church, even though I can't do it as much financially as I did when I was working full time. But I do pledge monthly. Oh, did you
For
freeze?
sharing that and for bringing a good point. The financial pledges are the financial pledges are so important, but the church wouldn't be anything without all of those other ways that we support as well through time and volunteering to
Right.
support the church. How did you decide what to give?
Well, I base it on what I have, and so I don't do a percentage. I mean, I would love to be able to tithe. I just financially can't do that. I've really only known one person in my life that truly tithed, which is 10%. She was a young woman that I worked with in Arkansas, and she was extremely devout. And these kids didn't have doodly. I mean, they really didn't. She worked for me for practically minimum wage, but they tithed every month. And I admired her so much for that. Unfortunately, I don't have the money to do that. So, but I decided based on what I know the church needs and what I can afford. So.
Well, and I know we certainly appreciate all that you offer with your time. and all that you do for the church in those ways. What parts of our church life do you find most meaningful?
Well, I love the Sunday service, but I really like Sunday school, and I'm really involved in our little book group that we have that we meet on Tuesdays at noon, and those have really been a big part of my life since we retired. Prior to that, we couldn't do that, but since we retired, both of us belong to the book group. But I really enjoy Sunday school. Um, we've had a lot. I even taught Sunday school for a while when Diane was here. But that's one of the things that I really like.
What would you say to someone else who is considering supporting the church?
Well, I thought a lot about this because that's a really important question. You have to know that I've chaired the budget committee for the last 4 years. So I'm probably more attuned to what our church's needs are than the average member. I know what we have to pay our bills. It's a hard thing to realize that church is a business, whether you want to think of it that way or not. It is. We have utility bills to pay. We have insurance to buy. We have salaries to pay. We have maintenance on our building. Those are all dollar figures, and they have to be paid for. And in order for us to serve the public the way we want to, we have to have money. So it is important that our members help us in that regard. Salaries are our largest expenditure. We have a very small but dedicated staff. I mean, we really do have a small staff. We just have a few people, and they work really hard, and they do a fantastic job keeping our church running. Last year, we, as a congregation, we voted to try to meet the conference standards for Pastor Adams' salary. And we also made a commitment to make financial adjustments to the staff's pay. So those cost us a lot of money. And this year, we've already put together a preliminary budget to help stewardship, and we're going to need some extra money. So I have to say the only way not the only way, but the primary way that we get money for our church is through memberships pledges. We do rent out our building, so we have some income there. We do have some income from our investments, but our primary income is pledges. So when people look at whether or not they want to give, they need to realize that the church is not going to run without those dollars. And many people may be in the same position that I'm in, and that's on a fixed income. But you need to look at what our needs are and what you can personally afford as an individual and make that commitment. And it's important to make the commitment because we need to know what we have to work with. And if you don't make a pledge, then we just have to guess. When we have a pledge and we have all the figures put together after stewardship, then we know what we have to work with. And we can look at the budget and cut where we need to cut, compromise where we need to compromise, and go forward when we can go forward. So pledging is really important to the functioning of the church and in making decisions about what we can do next year. That's why I encourage everybody to make a pledge, even if it hurts a little bit.
I appreciate you sharing so much detail about really kind of the behind the scenes, why it's so important for members to support our church. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
It's certainly been a unique year for the church with COVID and this pandemic. So, how has the church changed for you in the last year of COVID-19? And what's been one thing that's helped you stay connected to your faith and this faith community during this time?
Well, the virtual church services have been wonderful. I really have to take my hat off to Pastor Adam because this has not been a particularly easy year for him in regard to pulling everything together. I miss church. I miss the service. I miss the contact with the people. I especially miss Barbara Ellsworth's hugs on Sunday morning. I miss the music, but they have the staff and Pastor Adam have done a wonderful job putting services together, and we don't miss a service. We come down and we watch it at 10:30 every Sunday morning, and we've gone to any of the special services that he's put together. And we, as you said, even attend virtual coffee hour because it's an opportunity to get to see people. Our little book group has managed to stay. We meet on Zoom. Last summer, we met in the park with social distancing and our mask. And then in the winter, we've met on Zoom. So we haven't missed a single Tuesday. We've met all along. So that's kept me in. I really joked. I not too long, I wrote something on Facebook about the fact that people are going to have to do a lot of changing when we go back to in-person services, because you can no longer go to church in your jammies, and you can no longer drink your coffee during church, or you can eat your breakfast, or, so it's going to be interesting, but I'm really ready to get back to in-person worship. I've really missed it. And that goes really to the next question that we talk about. What prayers or hopes do you have for our church in the next year? I'm taking your place here, Molly. I hope that we're able to continue to revive the virtual church, even though we go back to in-person. And I know that the only way that we can do that is to invest in some equipment that we're going to need to do that. But we have new people that have come to our church just based on the fact that they can come to church virtually. And that's been a wonderful opportunity for people that, and hopefully when we go back to in-person, some of those new people will come to the church and we can actually meet them. That would be nice. But I just hope that we're able to continue to provide services on YouTube or however we end up doing it, to provide the opportunity for people who are shut in, who can't go to church. I know Marge Gilmore and I were talking yesterday, and she said what a boom it was for George this last year with his health so bad, but he was able to go to church on Sunday morning virtually. And some other people that she's talked to who are in care facilities, and yet they're able to go to church on Sunday with our group just because of virtual church. So that's my hope, is that we can continue to offer that even when we go back to in-person, which I hope is very soon. I want it to be. I really miss the camaraderie that goes with meetings. However, I was joking with finance committee and I told them I just assume those meetings continue on Zoom. Those are fine. Meetings can continue on Zoom. I like that. That works out well. So
meetings can continue on Zoom, coffee can continue in church, and then we can offer both options.
Yeah. Sounds great. Sounds great. Yeah.
Well, Sue, thank you so much for sharing all of this and just having such great conversation and great perspective. I really appreciate it. And
Well,
I hope that others can appreciate.
You're more than welcome. I really love this church and really want to do anything I can to help it continue to thrive the way it is. I mean, we're thriving when some other churches are not. So we have to thank our minister and our staff for doing a really wonderful job through this horrible year that we've been through. So thank you very much for asking me to do this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's been fun, and it's certainly been fun catching up with you a little bit too. So
Yeah, I miss seeing you. Okay, take
yeah, I'm
care.
missing you too. You
Okay,
too. Well,
good luck with your house.
thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.